Are you drowning in credit card debt? Can bankruptcy wipe it all out? And the answer is it depends. Well, what does it depend on? First of all, it's going to depend on your income. First question I'm going to ask is, do you make more money than an average household of your size? So in bankruptcy, there's this thing called the median income test. And basically, they use these IRS standards and they compare your household size to the income of the average household size. If you're over that, you might not be able to wipe all of it out. You can probably wipe out some of it, but it's going to depend on your specific situation. The next question we're going to ask you is, when did you make these charges on your credit card? If you've made charges 60 days prior to filing, you're going to have to pay it back flat out. There's no way around that one. If it's 90 days prior to filing, it is presumed that you're going to have to file it. I prefer to wait before we file a case that, you try to make a good faith effort for at least 6 months before you file. As a general rule, credit card companies aren't going to file a lawsuit against you until you've missed at least 6 months worth of payments. Then they have to get a judgment against you. Then they have to find out where you work. What are they going to do then? Well, then they're going to try to clean out your checking account or garnish up to 25% of your net check. So if you're ever at the water cooler and you hear somebody say, "Oh, you're about to file Chapter 7, go run up your credit cards quick, have a good time." Um, no, tell that person they're completely wrong. That's terrible advice. It is bad faith. It's not true. You definitely don't want to do that. Now, in this day and age, you would not believe the stories that I hear about how easy it is for some people to get credit. If you're in a situation where you're financing things like, people have food delivered to their home and they're charging it, no, 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 don't do that. You're headed on a path of destruction when you borrow here, borrow there, and they say, "Oh, don't worry, it's only 4 easy payments." The problem is when you keep doing it, it's the compound interest that gets you. Now, to illustrate just how powerful compound interest is, I want to ask you a question. If I said, "Hey, if you had a choice between taking $100,000 of cash right now, or if I took a penny and doubled it for 30 days, which would you rather have?" Well, if you say, "Give me the $100,000 now," you made the wrong choice. Because if you were to take the penny and double it for 30 days, that magic number is $5,368,709.12. Can you believe it? That is the miracle of compound interest. It's great when it's working for you, but when compound interest is working against you, that is terrible. At some point it's not survivable. You got to do something. Now let me talk about worst case scenario. What if you do make too much money? What if you've got, another question comes up is people have houses that are paid for, they have tons of equity, and that's would be a problem in a Chapter 7. Well, look, worst case scenario in a Chapter 13, you can pay back. In most cases, you can pay back 100% of the debt back, but the interest freezes in most cases. It's a pretty unusual case where you'd have to pay any interest on unsecured portion. And so, let's say somebody's got $60,000 of credit card debt. Well, that person's probably paying $20,000 a year in interest and late fees. And in a Chapter 13, in most cases, we can get rid of that interest. And so it makes it a lot easier to get rid of this credit card debt, even if you're in a situation where you make too much money to file. So another question that can come up when somebody has a significant amount of credit card debt, a trustee might ask, "Hey, what'd you spend the money on?" There's a good faith requirement here. So, I mean, even if you did do it a while ago, if it was done for something not so up and up, you may get an objection to discharge. Let me give you an example. One time I had a case where this lady went and bought 17 airline tickets to Europe. Well, as you can imagine, that didn't look good to a trustee, didn't look good to the credit card company. We had to do a little digging, and um, y- she had a good reason. Her mother was dying, and she wanted the kids and the grandkids to see the mother before she died. So it really wasn't fraud. We did okay in that case. But as you can imagine, that kind of stuff drew a lot of scrutiny. So, what you charged it on does matter. If it's basic living, I get it. It's understandable. A lot of people ask, how do we avoid that in the future? One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is using credit cards as their emergency fund. Things go wrong. I got my credit card, right? No, 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 no. That's not a good idea. It's pretty much guaranteed you're going to have emergencies in life. Medical, sometimes teeth go bad. You got to get a cavity filled. That costs a lot of money. Sometimes the roof starts leaking and the house insurance isn't going to pay it. That's a lot of money. These things will happen. Air conditioners break. If you have pets, oh my goodness, it is expensive to go to the vet now. Unbelievable. Don't rely on the credit card as your emergency fund. Instead, work your tail off to build up your savings account as high as you can reasonably get it, and treat that emergency fund only for the true emergencies. Never touch it. So if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you got nothing in savings, it's time to go into combat mode. It's time to start looking at what monthly expenses can we knock down. Another big one that really has hurt a lot of people in the past couple of years is rent, particularly in the metro Atlanta area. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of big hedge funds that have come down and literally bought the entire market, and they're jacking rent through the roof. This is not good. And I've seen some people come in to meet with me and they're paying literally 50% of their net income in rent. That's not sustainable. That's not doable. If you're above 30%, you got to make some changes. That means maybe you have to get a roommate. Maybe you have to move in and live with family. I know nobody wants to do that. Uh, it's particularly complicated and painful when there's kids involved, and somebody's in a specific location because they like the school system and they don't want to give up their independence. But the thing to remember is the important rule is the math has to work. I remember one time I was listening to Dave Ramsey advise this single mother who had kids and was struggling to survive, and she gave some good emotional reasons why she couldn't move, and he said, look, the math has to work. And at the time I thought, man, that is just mean. That is just cruel. I would never say that. But then I got to thinking about it more. And it's like, no, Dave Ramsey was right. The math does have to work, period. If you're living a lifestyle where the math doesn't work, eventually you're going to get sued. Eventually you're going to get garnished. Eventually you're going to have to file bankruptcy because the math has to work. And credit card debt will push you into that route faster than anything. As you saw from the earlier example, compound interest. Wow. I mean, it's amazing. Good when it works for you in your retirement. Terrible when it's sucking the life out of your budget. Okay, so let me give my disclaimer here real quick. Nothing in this video is intended as legal advice. If you want legal advice for your specific situation, call me, make an appointment, let's talk. But this is just, a general overview. If you're drowning in debt, I do think you need to meet with a bankruptcy attorney for sure. I think you need to educate yourself, and you can do that by going to my website, kellycanhelp.com. I've got a free book you can download, read it, read all of it. I've got tons of videos on my YouTube channel. They're free. It doesn't cost you anything to look at this stuff, educate yourself, and get out of debt. And one more last thing I want to throw in why it's so important to take care of business so you can survive is stress. And stress is detrimental to your health. Why should you live under horrible, excruciating stress? It's not good. Your health has got to be a priority. You got to take care of business. You won't regret it. Read my Google reviews. We've got a lot of good ones, and I strongly encourage you to take action. Give us a call or shoot us an email. Thank you so much for tuning in.